Real Estate Investors Association podcast. We get together every Tuesday, 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern, and talk about all things real estate investing. I'm Bill Gross. I'm the official podcaster for the event. This is Lloyd Siegel's event, held once a month live in the Culver City area at the Iman Center. And we try to get guests on to help us learn and grow and improve and motivate us to be successful. Really excited to have today somebody who really has a very unique, but I think reachable path for people to build an income in real estate as well as wealth, Brad Warren and land banking. Brad, thank you for being on a call today.
Oh, thank you very much for having me.
So give me a little background. How did you end up in real estate as a business?
Well, on December 31st, 2011, I was doing a quarterly net worth statement for my wife and I. Been doing it since 1989, every quarter since we got married. And I looked at the numbers, and Bill, I had a little bit of a shock. I realized I couldn't retire. My wife could retire. She had a great 401k at Oracle. She had enough money for herself. Together, combined, we could retire. But if I was by myself, I didn't have enough saved up. And I was, at that point, I was 60 years old, and it was a little bit shocking. So the next month, January of 2012, I turned 61, and I had my land banker, Marcella Silva, come to my house, did a presentation, and I wound up buying my first piece of property a couple of months later, my first vacant lot. And then I bought another one a year later, another one a year later. And then my wife got involved finally after 3 years, and then she bought 2, and today we own 11. And we're very, very happy that we will be able to continue to be retired in the lifestyle that we've gotten very used to. And it's all because of land. Dirt. I love dirt.
Dirt.
Yes.
So let's talk about the business of dirt. And then there's the asset building aspect of dirt. So somebody who wants to make a living selling real estate in the real estate industry, is there an opportunity as a land banking investment salesperson?
Well, that's a great question. And I would have to say at our company right now, we're not hiring. We have the maximum number of people that we want. Mm-hmm. You could try to go out on your own. I wouldn't recommend it. It is a field of real estate that requires a tremendous amount of research. We have an entire department of 5, 6, 7 people, and all they do all day long, in fact, what they're doing right now is researching land to buy that is proper land. It's been risk mitigated. It doesn't have red-legged toads on it, doesn't have easements, all that legal kind of stuff. And our research and acquisition department spends an inordinate amount of time just looking at land. For every 30 properties, Bill, that our company looks at, we only buy 1. And then that one becomes available to our investors. So it's a rather arduous process. So yes, you could go do it yourself. You could try to get into our company at some point, but like I said, we're not hiring for the foreseeable future right now.
Okay. And when you talk about looking at 30 properties for one, I mean, my experience is that's investors in general, that you have to look at a lot of deals. I find investors will look at 3 or 5 properties and say there's no deals. And I'd say, no, there's always deals. The only question is how many deals you look at to find one that's investment worthy, right?
Yes.
And so you have a team of people doing that to leverage your time. So you have to do that by yourself.
Yep. My job is to get on wonderful shows like this, talk about land as a way to diversify your portfolio. We don't want people to put all of their money in land. That's never wise to put it all in one kind of investment, but to diversify. And I just meet people through these kinds of vehicles. And then we have a rather arduous process to work with us. You have to get educated first. We won't even, like if you said right now, if one of your listeners called in and said, hey, Brad, I want to buy land right now. I've got $25,000. Give me a property. I'd say, no, sorry, can't do that. You haven't seen the full presentation yet. We cannot sell it to you until you're educated. So we take people through that process first, get them educated, let them learn what they're getting involved in. And then if they still want to do it, we proceed.
Got it. And I did that. You had a video, a webinar presentation I took. It was really interesting. That's kind of what prompted me to follow up with you and be here today is to offer those opportunities. I know customers of mine in the past who've done this and had success with land. It's something I'm looking to do as well at the appropriate time. And so you have to be in the process. So let's talk about, though, you guys aren't just talking about any land anywhere. You have some specific criteria and formats for identifying the land. Are you able to talk? I know that in the webinar, they go into great detail on that. Are you able to go into that now? Or is that something you need to be in the webinar to get those details on?
Well, I'll give the short answer right now. I don't know if people can see this or if it's just a podcast and it's just listening, but there's a map behind me and there's a 60-mile round circle drawn around downtown LA with downtown LA right in the middle. That 60-mile radius around downtown LA is the area where we invest. There's 10 reasons why. That I won't go into. That's part of the education process. But there are several opportunities within that 60-mile radius, mostly on the outskirts. We're talking Lancaster, Palmdale, Adelanto, Victorville, and even further out, Desert Hot Springs, Palm Springs, Inland Empire, that where the land is affordable, it's in the path of growth. There are tremendous expansions occurring with infrastructure, like roads being built, highways going in, off-ramps being developed. There is job creation in many of those areas. The marijuana growers want the land to build their marijuana grow facilities, these 10, 20, 30 acre size buildings that just grow pot. And then warehousing is a big thing happening right now with the Amazon effect and e-retailing, I think they call it, or e-tailing. Amazon and other companies, Michael, Skechers, they all have to have warehouses within about 100 to 200 mile radius of a major metropolitan area in order to deliver next day, which we've all become accustomed to. I got to have it within 24 hours. Well, then the place where all the goods are stored has to be within 24 hours and close by so that they can get it there. So lots of stuff going on in the area where we invest.
I think the thing that was most interesting to me and exciting and why I'm looking to get involved is that I live in Southern California. My nature is only invest where I can see things or know things, have some knowledge or experience. I don't want to say insider knowledge, but if you pay attention, you'll learn things. But I find LA to be a terrible place to develop residential property. I'm not interested in personally. Landlord unfriendly. The whole state's landlord unfriendly. But I think your company has said, fine, we want to be geographically in the area because this wave of population is still growing. We want to get in front of the wave. How could we profit without maybe developing residential property, without having to tenants? What are some alternative? And so you have these theses that allow somebody to invest here in Southern California, yet not have to deal with COVID rental restrictions and landlord tenant lawsuits and the LA building department, things like that. Right? Yep. Are you able to talk?
No tenants, toilets, termites.
That's right. That's the phrase. No tenants. Great. No tenants. No termites. What was the third one? Tenants, termites.
Toilets.
Now, I mean, I like having a toilet around. Don't get me wrong. As much as the next guy, I'm a little older now. I need to have a toilet around more often than I used to. But I don't want to have to deal with other people's toilets. I think that's really should be other people's toilets, not toilets in general.
Exactly. Yes.
It always strikes me in these mansions, they have more bathrooms than bedrooms. I don't know if you noticed that, but you hear these stories about people have 20-room mansions, but they have 25 bathrooms. You think, why would you need more bathrooms than bedrooms? That doesn't mathematically make sense. But you can't have too many bathrooms unless you have to clean them. Then there's too many bathrooms.
Right. Yes. Well,
so are you able to, I'm sorry, go ahead. Well, I was going to say, I think you guys found this thesis that allows people who live here see the inevitable population growth. I mean, it's just as bad as California's politics and economy can be. What's also true is the population is continuing to grow.
Well, yes and no, Bill. I've had a couple of recent people have actually, and this mostly comes from my international investors. They've been saying things like, well, California, it's such a bad place for business. And there's all these people moving out. And it is true. There actually is, from my understanding, and it may have changed in the last week or two, but there is actually a net migration out of California. In other words, more people are leaving than moving in. However, we're still a state with over 39 million people in it. And when people talk about the economy, I like to point out this one fact, which most people don't know. California as a state has the 5th largest economy in the world. We are only behind the United States, China, Japan, and Germany. And then California as a state ranks number 5, and it's predicted within 30 to 60 days, probably around first quarter of 2023, we will pass Germany and become the 4th largest economy. And oh, by the way, Bill, did you know that LA County by itself as a county is the 20th largest economy in the world? Right. So when people say it's a bad place to do business, I say, I don't believe you. It's a great place to do business, or we wouldn't have an economy that large.
Right. Or maybe another way to phrase is a bad place to do some businesses. It's a great place to do other business, right? I don't really sell retail residential real estate. It's tough. It's a tough business. It's very competitive. It's a great place, probate, where basically it's poor people and people dying. Well, people are dying, and there's a lot of poor people in LA, so there's a lot of probate business. But so there's different businesses that are good and different businesses that are not so good. So let's talk a little bit about the investment vehicle. What is it that people are buying? They're buying a title to a piece of property. Are they buying into a fund of property? What is a person who invests? What do they end up with as a vehicle for investment?
Well, they basically end up with dirt. So they do get a fee simple deed, and they own the land. Usually the minimum investment is 1 acre. So they will own that land themselves, or they can invest with family and friends. The laws in California allow you to invest with up to 4 non-family members and 8 family members. So you can pool your money. Let's say you got 3 friends, they each have 25,000, you have 25,000. And rather than each of you get a 1 acre parcel on your own, you pull that 25 times 4, that's 100,000. The property that I just closed on today, I just sold a property, it closed today. It was 50,000 for 20 acres. And it's a little bit towards, it's right on the edge of the circle. It's a little further out because we're finding it hard to find solar land, or what we call green real estate. It's a little harder to find it because it's disappearing very, very quickly, causing the greatest land rush in the history of California. But that was $50,000 for 20 acres. One person bought it, but you could have had 2 people at 25 each. Or maybe you move up to the next higher level and get a residential property. That's around 100 to 150. And you buy a 2, 3, 4 acre lot that then gets subdivided and sold to a home developer who wants to put in 500 houses, and your 10 houses or 8 houses or whatever are part of that. So there's a bunch of different ways that you can do it, but most people buy by themselves. They like to have the control, and they like to be able to exit when they want to exit without having to check in with other people.
It's interesting that politically, one of the challenges California has is a political climate against developing more residential land out further. But one way I think our political system has found to accomplish that is turn that land into something else, solar farms or some other usage, marijuana farms. And so as much as there's a demand for that land, there's a demand on the other side for the green economy, solar and other forms of distribution that are outside. They're going to fill in those spaces where otherwise people might be living. So I think it's one of those things where, you can say you're against development and support this because, okay, against development, you probably are going to be for moving the economy from oil and fossil fuels to solar. And that's exactly what is happening here in California. Like it or not, that's a fact that's going on. And I see every day more and more Teslas than any other fancy car.
And not just in the United States. If you read the right literature, which is what our company does, we do an incredible amount of research. Mm-hmm. Every car manufacturer in the world, VW, Tesla, GM, Chrysler, you name it, Lexus, all of them, Cadillac, Every car company in the world has declared that they will stop selling internal combustion engine, ICE engine, we even call them ICE, internal combustion engines, either by 2030, 2035, or at the latest 2040. So it's not just Gavin Newsom, crazy Gavin Newsom here in California. He's an eco freak, a tree hugger, and we're going to EVs, electric vehicles, just in California. No, it is a worldwide movement to get rid of internal combustion engine cars and replace them with electric cars. And what do you have to do when you do that? You have to have electricity. And California, in particular, is a leader in renewable energy with SB 100, which Governor Brown signed in 2018, went into effect January 1st, 2019, requires the state of California to get 100% of its energy from renewables for buildings and homes. Not even talking about the cars yet. This is just buildings and homes, 100% of its electricity from renewables by 2045.
So you have to like this trend or agree with the trend, but it is inevitable. This is what's going on right now.
It is what it is.
It is what it is.
Argue against it, but it's reached the tipping point. Energy from electricity actually dropped below energy from fossil fuels several years ago. People don't even know this, but the curve used to be solar, and down here was fossil fuels, and fossil fuels just kept going up. Solar kept going down, and it crossed probably 4 years ago, 2016, 17, 18, somewhere around there. And now fossil fuels and solar keeps getting cheaper as they develop better panels. So it's all heading in that direction, whether you like it or not.
Right.
It's a question of, do you want to get on the bandwagon and make some money from it?
So one of the main drivers is green real estate. Another green real estate is cannabis. Talk a little bit about how that part of the market is driving a desire for land, and why would that land be within 60 miles of Los Angeles? Why is that location better than, say, Central California or Eastern Northern California?
Well, I think it was Proposition 60. I forget the exact number, though, the one that legalized recreational marijuana in California, that kind of sparked this and just blew it out of the water. So what's happened is there are all these people that grow pot for legal sales, and they grow them in what are called these grow facilities, and they're massive. They have very few employees. They're completely automated. The humidity, the heat, the light, all of that, very energy intensive, by the way. They use a lot of electricity. The only pictures that I've seen where I've seen actual employees are the guards, the security guards with the AK-47s and the German Shepherds walking around the outside to make sure nobody breaks in and steals the plants. But when you take pictures of the inside, you don't see any employees. Maybe a couple that come and push some buttons, but mostly it's all automated. And they're growing these marijuana plants, 15, 20, 30 feet high. So they need height, and they need width and breadth. And they just have these pots, and they've got the little water drip systems and the lighting and the humidity and all that's and temperature controlled. And they are producing massive amounts of marijuana to be consumed by massive amounts of not only Californians, but I'm guessing other people that come to visit California, that fly in and buy and then go home to their state where they may not have as liberal laws as we do. And these marijuana growers need land. And it's mostly restricted to like industrial zones. They don't want to have these next door to a church or a school or a hospital. They put them out in an industrial zone where there's manufacturing and other industrial storage facilities, things like that. So you buy industrial zoned land. That's one of the 5 categories of land is industrial zone. And then you wait for the marijuana grower to knock on your door and say, hi, we're building a 20-acre marijuana facility. You own 5 acres right here in this corner and we need it. And then you start negotiating. And oh, by the way, we offer free negotiation coaching for any of our investors when they go to exit to help them get the maximum return on their investment.
Wow. Yeah, I would say I've had recently 2 industrial listings, and in both cases, I was approached by marijuana growers. Now these are in city properties, but still, there's an insatiable demand for property for growing and for distribution of the material. Again, whether you like it or not, it is a significant factor in our real estate industry. So,
Well, just one little factoid on that, Bill, is currently the wine industry in the state of California is approximately $7 billion. They expect marijuana, I believe it's by 2030, to be a $70 billion industry.
Yeah.
That's 10 times the wine industry in the next, what do we got? 7.5, 8 years.
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing the money involved in that process.
Oh, unbelievable.
I also had a listing up in the Kern County area, and it's just amazing the transformation in those areas as a result of a number of things: immigration, green energy, and green marijuana energy. Is amazing. So let's talk about the investment vehicle. Somebody who wanted to get involved. What's a typical minimum investment to get started in, and what's the most common investment size you guys see?
A minimum investment is 25,000 up to 2 million. That's kind of the range that we can handle. Anybody that's got more than 2 million, they actually get to meet the CEO and they talk with him. He might have some special properties for them, because now you're talking, most likely mixed use and very large properties when you're getting up there. But we're talking 25, 50, 75, 100 is generally the range that I sell in. I've had a couple that were 300, 400,000. And so that's the minimum investment. The returns are usually somewhere in the order of 3 to 7x, 3 to 7 times. And the hold period, and this is where people kind of, raise their eyebrows a little bit. We tell people on average, we're very conservative, 7 to 10 years. This is not get rich quick. This is not buy and flip. This is not cash flow. This is buy and hold, set it and forget it. Do nothing except pay your property taxes once a year in late October, early November. And then just wait. So if you're not a patient person, please don't contact me. I don't want to talk to you. If you haven't got the patience, I could tell some stories of some of my clients that called me after a year, and I had to reprimand them and say, what did I tell you? I said 7 to 10 years. And they finally got it. They sort of, woke up and realized, okay, it's going to be a few more years. And then you just wait.
Well, I think this is appropriate for the 5 to 10% of your retirement account where you might buy gold or coins, where you're not expecting any return for it, but you want to store the value, where people recently have been buying cryptocurrencies thinking they're going to go up in the long run. And yet, how do you store the value there? And here you're talking about land, which has traditionally only gone up over time throughout history. The one minor exception, and that was kind of contrived. So the idea being that that's an ideal type of store of value for a 10-year period or 5-year period for longer term investments, not meant for speculation. This isn't flipping land. This is putting land away and enjoying the long-term benefit of living in California.
Correct. And you alluded to the fact most of my clients, I would say well over 50%, maybe 60 or 70% of my clients will use a self-directed IRA, either a regular self-directed IRA or a Roth self-directed IRA. Hopefully your listeners know the difference between the two. One is tax deferred, one is tax free. And, out of my 11 properties, or my wife's and mine, 9 are in a Roth and 2 are in a regular self-directed IRA. So on 9 of those properties, all of the gain is tax free. But that's a CPA kind of question. We don't give advice along those lines. We don't give tax advice of any kind. We don't give legal advice. We tell people, do your due diligence, talk to your people, your financial advisor, make sure this is appropriate, and make sure it's money that you're not going to need. I don't want to get a phone call, 2 or 3 years in where the person says, oh, my kid's going to college. It's more expensive than we thought. We got to get out. I said, well, you can't get out. You just, there's no market for your land until somebody needs it for a project. Oh my God. Oh. And then, they wring their hands and then they're always happy that they wait, because 2 or 3 years later, they hit that sweet spot and they get enough to pay for the entire college education and they get it all covered in one sale.
So I know I've interviewed in the past the CPA, David Ellis. He talked a little bit about self-directed IRAs, and there's several companies that offer these, and I've interviewed some of those companies. Is there a particular company that you recommend for working with self-directed IRAs, or do you just do people find those on their own?
Great question. We actually have three that we work with, and I wish I could remember. I know it's Equity Trust because that's where my account is. Forge and Premier. Forge used to be IRA Services of Southern California, and Premier used to be Pensco. And now they've changed their name. But those three companies, you must have it at one of those three. You pick the one that you like. Personally, I like Equity. Equity actually has a staff person just for Valor clients. So they have a direct person to call. They don't dial an 800 number. They call May and they talk to May because she knows how to do the land and title it correctly. So that when it comes time to sell, you have to take it out of title because actually the IRA owns the land. I don't own my land. My IRA owns the land, FBO, for the benefit of Bradley Warren. So there's all that kind of legal stuff that you got to make sure that they know. So we only work with those three companies. If you have a self-directed IRA somewhere else, have a nice day. I can't work with you. I don't mean to be flippant or mean. It's just our company has very high standards, and we know it works after 43 years of doing this.
Right.
So we're very careful to make sure that people pick a really good company, one that we vetted, that we've worked with, and then that way everything runs very smoothly.
Right. Well, there is a certain amount of administrative overhead every time you work with somebody new to explain to them how things work, and it's a bit of a challenge. I can imagine as a company to deal with them. So I can see why you'd want to limit, but offering three options at least gives customers those three choices. For the rest of the people, I want to say I did interview a lady on my YouTube channel, Larissa Green, with the company I have mine with is Advanta IRA. So again, can't use them with Bill's program, Brad's program, but they're also a good company for other uses.
Right.
So okay, so we have a self-directed IRA, and we put the money in minimum $25,000. What's the most common size of investment that you guys come across? What's the average investor?
I would say between 25 and 100 is kind of what we're doing now, mostly because that's the solar area and everybody seems to want solar. It's selling faster. We're noticing that they tend to go not in that 7 to 10 year time frame, sometimes 3 to 5. Sometimes you can get a lease and that will give you 25 years of income and you'll still own the land at the end. There's a 2% escalation clause every year, so your rent goes up. But we've had a few, not many, and we don't want people to go in thinking this is how they'll exit. Most people sell directly to the energy company. Could be Southern California Edison, PG&E, Garland Energy, Duke Energy, Repower, S-Power. There's like 20 or 30 companies now that have sprung up over the last decade that are all producing energy from solar panels in this area, feeding it into the grid. In fact, I'm up here 400 miles away in Northern California. The electricity running my computer and this lamp and the lamp overhead could all be energy generated where I own land. So it could be my own energy company. By the way, the city of Lancaster, just a quick, another factoid on the side. The city of Lancaster for the last few years has gotten these awards, but it is the first net zero city in the entire United States. Which means between its own solar field plus all the solar panels that are required on all housing, all new housing, all new hotels, anything with a roof on it has to have solar when it's built. Because of that, plus their own solar farm, Lancaster produces more electricity than it consumes.
Wow.
It's just freaking ridiculous. It's the stuff you learn. I've been doing that. I've been investing for 10 years. I've been a real estate agent for 5. And Bill, I am still learning more and more. In fact, every Tuesday, not every Tuesday, but 4 Tuesdays and a week off, 4 Tuesdays and a week off, the COO of the company does a 30-minute update webinar for all of our investors. And now we're even letting potential investors watch just so they can learn more and hopefully stimulate them to become investors. But he does a free update for 30 minutes, just saying this law just passed. This new company is breaking ground on a new hospital. The city council just did such and so and so and so. I found out during one of those events, I have a mixed use property. It's zoned MU4, meaning it could go 4 stories high. City council rezoned it to MU5. They just gave me an acre and a quarter vertically,
Nice.
not horizontally. They gave me
Nice.
the ability to sell to a developer who can build a 5-story hotel instead of a 4-story hotel. What do you
Nice.
think that just did to the value of my land? It just
Bible.
1x'd it. So
Yeah.
if it was worth 2 times, it's now worth 3 times. If it was 7, it's now 8. And I didn't do anything. The city I didn't even ask them. I didn't petition them. They did it on their own.
I think it's the nature of land. It goes up in value over time. There's no more land in the state of California. There is what there is.
Well, we tell people invest in land because they're not making any more of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Except in Hawaii, and that's a volcano. And I don't think you'd want to live or develop on that hot lava. It's brittle.
No, I don't think you do. Okay, look, I've done a lot of talking. I find this topic fascinating. I'm interested in it. I took the webinar, so I'm in position to qualify to invest with them. But I do this for everybody on the call. If you're watching this on the live stream, feel free to ask questions. I could pick up YouTube or Facebook questions live here in the chat box. If you're watching this recording, we'll circle back to you with questions. If you're on the Zoom call, we'd love to have you come and participate. That's why we do this. I've talked to Brad one-on-one, but we do this publicly to give you guys a chance to ask questions and participate. So if you have a question, raise your hand, put in the chat box. Love to have you participate and learn more. And if you have a question in your mind, I'm sure there's 2 or 3 other people watching this who also have it in mind. So what, you're in sales. What does business development look like? What's your schedule look like as far as promoting these types of opportunities? What do you do to meet new people besides talk to me? And I appreciate it. What else do you do?
Well, it's kind of embarrassing to say that COVID actually skyrocketed my business. Prior to that, I would go to networking events in person, like a Chamber of Commerce or a BNI or, one of those networking groups. And I would meet 1 or 2 people. Maybe I'd get a business card that night. Maybe I wouldn't. Then I would have to set up an appointment for lunch, drive there, drive home, deal with traffic, pollute the environment, get fat because I was eating all these incredible lunches. Oh, and I paid for them. And then maybe the person would become an investor. Well, when COVID hit, I had to completely, I love the P word, right? Pivot. I had to pivot. And I knew about Zoom, but I wasn't really using it. Well, I became a Zoom fanatic. And I was doing 7, 8, 10 networking events a week where I would just log on to whatever free one I could find, meet a bunch of people in these breakout rooms, and I was getting 2, 3 leads every meeting. I was getting 10, 15 leads a week. Then I would set up the one-on-ones on Zoom. They would have to watch Marcella's full presentation. We call it Land Banking 101. And after they'd watch that presentation and talk with me, and then they would meet Marcella. Like I said, our bar is very high. After all that was done, and they still said, yes, I want to buy. I've got the money. I don't need it. I understand the principle. I'm not going to hound you guys. I'm ready to be in business with you for the next 10 years. Then we would get them a property at that point. Now, what I've sort of mini pivoted within that. I'm doing a lot less networking meetings and a lot more podcasts, just like this. My best finder, that's what we call our referral partners, people that send us people. We call them finders because they find people. Well, the first podcast I ever did, and Bill, you're going to laugh. I didn't know what a podcast was. This was June 29th, 2021. I got dressed up because I thought it was recorded like a video. And I get on, and Mikkel, the guy it's called the Expat Money Show. His name is Mikkel Thorpe. He lives in Panama. He puts me on his show, and he says, Brad, why are you all dressed up? I said, well, aren't you recording this? He said, yeah, it's a podcast. It's audio only, Brad. And I went, oh, geez. And so we got a good chuckle out of that. His one podcast on June 29th, 2021 has resulted in 19 closed sales.
Wow.
Today.
Wow.
The one that closed today was number 19.
Wow.
So, do I like podcasts? Yeah. And you may say, well, what's in it for Mikkel? This would be a good time to ask me. So, Brad, do you pay referral fees? Bill, I'm really glad you asked that. Yes, I pay a 2% finder's fee. So if you refer business to me, either on your own podcast or just your neighbor or your uncle, I got a guy the other day, he said his uncle is selling a $800,000 house and is thinking about buying land. I said, okay, we do 1031 exchanges. We could do that. But he will make 2% on whatever amount that uncle invests.
Yes.
The person today that's closing is one of Mikkel's. It's actually their 8th sale. It's closing today. He will get $1,000 out of the 50,000 purchase price.
Wow.
It actually comes out. It doesn't come out of the purchase price. It comes out of my commission. I'll be wiring him $1,000, but he's made over $36,000 in finder's fees
Wow.
in a year and a half just from putting me on one podcast. Does that happen with every podcast I get on? No, not everybody's got 31,000 people on their email list, but there is a great possibility for your listeners to add passive income to their lives.
Sure. And that's one of the reasons I did this. I think real estate agents are so stuck and talk about negative market issues. And it's true, the market's changed, but there are plenty of people with money sitting in IRAs. I'm one of them, where the value is way down because the stock market's down, and they're looking for new opportunities. They're fed up with this, they're fed up with that. People were bragging about Tesla a year ago. That stock is down. One thing that's not gone down in value is land in California. And so any real estate agent on this call or investor on this call, a list of past clients, you might want to learn more about this, invest along in it, and then reach out to Brad and become a finder for him as a way to generate more revenue for you and income for you as well. So, okay, look, I find this topic fascinating. Here we go. Can I get a loan to buy the land, or is it all cash?
Great question. We highly discourage you from getting a loan, because then you're paying interest for maybe 10 years, which is going to take your 25,000 and maybe double it to 50,000 by the time you're done. So we don't recommend that at all. We don't like people borrowing against a life insurance policy, though you can. We don't like them taking out a HELOC against their home, but you can. The way that most, like I said, 60-70% of my people use an IRA, about 20% to 25% use cash, and maybe the 5% use a 1031 exchange. Those would be the three main ways.
And to me, that's the clue that your offering is legitimate, because in my entire career, there has been a bit of a scam selling land in some of the markets you're in. The most famous one was always the Lancaster Airport that was going to be built, or Palmdale Airport. And the plan always was that you would put like 50% down or 10% down and pay monthly, because they knew at some point in time they overpriced the property. At some point you would give up on the property, they'd foreclose and resell the same property over and over and over again, because they had no interest in you buying land. The whole thing was a scam. This is different, where you're putting in actual cash, you're deeded the actual land. And the idea is you're investing along with them, as they also have their portfolio of properties they're buying. So to me, that was one of the clues that this was different than the land sales I had seen in the past.
And it's funny you mentioned the Palmdale Airport, because the city council recently approved plans to build a new passenger terminal.
Wow.
They've actually put that back in, and they're passing laws.
Wow.
Build a passenger terminal, because they're getting so many people on these commuter flights from San Francisco that come down to work at Lockheed and Northrop Grumman and NASA.
Air Force Base.
And
solar farms. Yeah, no doubt.
They have their facilities to build the planes. In fact, Northrop Grumman got a $92 billion Department of Defense contract to build the B-21 stealth bomber.
Wow.
And it's going to be built right in Palmdale. Northrop Grumman announced they're going to need to hire 6,500 high-paying workers, welders, aircraft designers, technicians. Well, when all those people start coming in, where are they going to live? Well, they're going to have to build more houses. Well, where are their kids going to go to school? Oh, they're going to have to build more schools. Well, where are they going to go shop and buy coffee? Oh, Starbucks and Walmarts. In fact, if you check, I hope I'm saying this correctly. My understanding is Walmart bases its decision to build a Walmart based on every 200,000 population. So they figure if it's got 200,000, that's a Walmart. 400,000, another Walmart. Well, the Lancaster Palmdale area has 5 Walmarts. The population today is only 410,000 between the two. But by 2030, the two mayors have declared they expect there to be 1 million people living in the Antelope Valley. 1 million divided by 200,000, that's 5. Maybe Walmart knows something that we don't know. They're not stupid. Walmart's not a stupid company. Why would it build 5 if you think this was going to happen?
No, they're not stupid.
Crazy.
Eric, I need to ask another great question, which is, besides property tax, what other expenditures are there to own the property?
Fabulous question. All right. So let's say you buy a $50,000 property. You've got the 50,000 that you need. The escrow fee, and we have our own in-house escrow department, so we keep the escrow fee fairly low, would be up to 55,000. It's $800. And for every 5,000 over 55, it goes up $10. We pay for title insurance. We pay for the natural hazard disclosure report. So there's no additional fees for that. So that's it. 800 plus your 50. If you're doing it in an IRA, it's an additional $250 because there's a lot of extra paperwork to deal with the self-directed IRA companies. So even with a self-directed IRA for a $50,000 property, you're talking $1,050 plus the 50. That's it. And most of my clients get a refund of some of that escrow fee. We almost never use the entire $800. So they'll get a couple of $150, $80, to $150 back. Then your carrying costs are property tax. And for your California viewers, hopefully, and listeners, hopefully they know about Proposition 13, passed in 1978, retroactive to 1976, which caps the transfer of property, caps the new assessed value at no more than 1.3%. So even on a $100,000 property, the maximum your first year taxes would be $1,300. And it's never the maximum because when the county comes in and because they're a business friendly city government, they don't want to tax it real high. It's usually about half. So say you're paying $500 for your first year on a $100,000 property. Well, Proposition 13 also limits the yearly increase to no more than 2%. So 500 in year one, 510 in year two, 520 and 40 cents, I think it is, in year three. And it goes up very, very slowly. So even if you're holding for 10 years, $10 a year times it's another 500 over 10 years, 5,000, say 6,000, maybe $6,500 on a $100,000 property is your total investment over the 10-year period. Now, when you sell, you're going to deal with, if you're represented by a real estate agent, then there'll be something in there. If you have to hire a real estate attorney to go over the contract, there might be a fee there. There could be some closing costs. We don't touch that. We have nothing to do with that. That's the negotiation between you and whoever is buying. And like I said, we offer free negotiation coaching to help you maximize your return.
How about carrying costs? You have property tax, anything else during the time of the ownership? Insurance?
We've been told by our attorneys, there's no reason to get insurance. If somebody goes on your land, they're trespassing. Right. So if they try to sue you, they have no case because they just trespassed. So to my knowledge, nobody in the 43-year history of the company that I know of, now I don't know every case, but I've never heard of anybody buying insurance. Right. I've never heard of anybody getting sued over their land of somebody coming in. We've never had eminent domain come in and take over anybody's land. The only notice I got, Bill, and this was like a year ago, I got a weed abatement notice on dirt. That's all that's there. It's dirt. But they're saying I'm in some kind of weed abatement zone. And if the city council decides that they want to have people remove like the tumbleweeds, just the things that blow, and there's maybe a couple of cacti growing because it's in the high desert. So there's not a lot of trees unless the trees are planted. I may have to pay 30, 40, maybe $100 to participate in his weed abatement program. But right now, that was like a year ago, and I haven't gotten any notice since then. So as far as I know, nothing else other than your property tax.
Got it. Okay. Well, so look, I appreciate the chance to chat, and we're kind of coming up in the end here. If you have any last second questions, raise your hand and put in the chat box. If you're watching it live, Eric Chu, thank you for your questions. If you're watching it live on YouTube or Facebook, feel free to get questions in there. If we don't get them today, I'll circle back. Brad, if somebody get a hold of you to learn more about land banking as an investment or land banking as a way to develop some referral fee income, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
The absolute best way is to email, and it should be pretty easy for people to remember because it's my name. I actually did that so I would remember my email address and never forget it. It's brad@bradwarren.com, WARREN, brad@bradwarren.com. I respond to all emails, even when I'm on vacation. within 24 hours. It's the only thing I do on vacation is just check emails. I don't do a lot of business, but I will get back to you, and then we'll start the process. It could be an initial phone call. It could be a Zoom. Most likely, I would send them a link to watch what I call the Land Banking 101 presentation by my business partner, Marcela Silva. They watch that, and then after they watched it, and they're still curious and still interested, then I would schedule time to meet with them, because I found that if I start meeting with them in the beginning before they've seen that, a lot of times they go, "Oh, I didn't realize it was 7 to 10 years. Oh, I didn't realize the minimum was 25,000. I thought I could get in for 5." So when they watch that, they're coming to the call with me already having been educated quite deeply. And then I just go even deeper. And then after that, if they're still interested, then we actually introduce them to Marcella. And after that, they buy. That's the process.
So Brad at bradwarren.com. Brad, thank you so much for your time today explaining land and ways to invest money here in Southern California. I really appreciate your time today.
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure being here.
And for the rest of you, our sponsor, we do this every week, Tuesday at 3 o'clock. This is the LA County Real Estate Investors Association. We have a live meeting. This is, I think, the best live meeting in Southern California. We do it every second Thursday of the month. The upcoming great investor opportunity, Abbas Mohammed. He talks about getting started investing in multifamily properties. He's a syndicator who started from scratch and built his business. It's Thursday, January 12th, be next year, 6:30 to 9:30. And then before that is the Vendors Expo. We get about 50 vendors together. I'm one of them. I'm one of the featured vendors doing a live stream. We can meet with from other professionals to help you build your business and do some networking. So again, that's every second Thursday of the month. You can get the details at LAREIC.com or LAREIC, LAREIC.com. Otherwise, I'm Bill Gross. We do this every Tuesday at 3 o'clock. Appreciate you guys being here today. Call me, text me, email if I can help you. If I don't speak to you, have a great holiday. We'll see you next week as well. Thank you so much, everybody.